I invite you all to get comfortable, take a few deep breaths, and put yourself in this state of discovery. Suspend your thinking process, and if you must, look at that place as your head. We'll give you some map locations. There's a thinking process that goes on, and it's very, very important. Without this thinking process, you don't have a physical world. Your intuition, it's always an impelling statement, small declarative statement telling you the next most advantageous step for the good of the whole. This voice comes out of your heart. Your emotion, that pure fuel, long before there's any definition, there's a primordial soup, and it's called emotion with an E, capital E. And that's in your solar plexus. And these three human dimensions are the ones that we as individuals are being challenged to take control of in a new way, not in the way that says, choke everything off so that you don't have any negative emotion influencing your actions. In a way that says, I'm going to look at myself in a revolutionary new light. We will command that only the most divine light shine down upon you at this time, and the greatest good be present here. We are so honored to welcome you to this circle today. We have been having these circles for a very long time, and we must say that we learn so much when you take our information and, like scientists, you put it to use in the physical world. Because those of us here in the party, we don't have bodies anymore. We are not privy to that lens where everything separates in that way. We still have our awareness and our perceptions. It's still a beautiful world that you'll see once you let go of your body. But while you are there separated, you are the ones who have the power in your hands. As Barbara was saying, back in the beginning of our lives, 1900s, 1920s, 1930s, 1940s. It was an entirely different world. There was no psychology yet. There was no quantum physics yet. The changes that took place on those levels, the development of scientific theories and the coming of E equals MC squared, which changed everything, revolutionized everything. Those hadn't happened. And those of us who were there with our bodies then, who are here now in the party, we were the ones, we were the visionaries trying to ask the right questions. Because after you see firsthand how extreme culture got in World War II in Germany and other places in those areas, but nonetheless. And of course, this wasn't the first time there was this great human strife. But those of us in the party literally lived through watching incrementally, step by step, how your society, our society changed to where the demonization of the Jew and the fringe and those that didn't fit in led to the most extreme outcome we thought possible. But with the advent of the nuclear age, we realize now that no, even the Holocaust is not as horrible as can happen when human beings get subsumed into the culture that does not allow them to have control over their own domain of thoughts, feelings, and senses. Those deep feelings are manipulated with propaganda and fear to change your intellect into thinking and denying that you are all one being. That anxiety or that fear in the emotion level, before there's definitions of what it means, comes up. And if the intellect is saying, this fear is all about that person, and in order for me to feel safe, I need to get rid of that person. That is the old system that is self-destructive. It's the degenerative human piece of this whole master plan that we've just described to you. Our questions in the party, as we have through the years, when we first met after our deaths, and there began to be a congregation of those souls who longed, were still connected to the earth, to the culture, to the humanity that we knew, longed to be able to make a difference now from this place as to how we could influence. Because of that desire and passion that we brought in from our lives, we've been able to help be a part of the evolution, which includes the kind of thing that you're seeing now, where there are people who have been trained to be able to interface with us and allow us to speak in this way. Because there is a part of you, before you become a human in the lens, this wave of light, we can share that wave of light with you and your consciousness. You may not remember it in your human mind while you're so busy making the physical world, but that's okay. That's what you're supposed to be doing. You're making the physical, you're perceiving the physical world. It takes a lot of energy for your entire operating system. Stay focused on that chair. But there are these other parts of you that we interface with. And so we learn when we watch, for example, when you get these emotions of fear, or you don't know what to do, and they come up the wave, and sometimes you can barely hear that intuitive voice of compassion telling you that next most advantageous step for the good of the whole. You can't hear it because as it moves into the intellect, there's such a cacophony of that's a chair and that's a sky, all in that subatomic. And then there's the cacophony in your conscious thinking about what you did last week, last month, last year, when you grew up. Did you, it was tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. And then in the superconscious, where there's a part of your intellect that brings it all together to really define it wholly, like we're doing now. And in that part of you, that organ of intellect, is where your free will exists. That's where your free will is controlled by. And that's why an anger feeling can come up through you. Intuition can say, take a step back. But intellect, that might be fooling itself into thinking that person is not you and you better go hurt them or destroy them, can take control right then and there, takes control of the entire system. We've called it giving the car keys to the 11-year-old. And this system, first of all, the power over it is to understand it. You don't have to believe everything we say is fact. But when you understand that this is just how it works, then you begin to get a bigger sense of self, and you begin to explore different solutions to the problems of the world. Here we are now in 2022 with you, where the world is watching, literally, are you going to destroy yourselves on public TV, on the internet, on social media? And it seems like a world out of control. And in that sense, it is. But the only place that we can help you is to start you in your own energy field, understanding the bigger nature of your own energy field. It doesn't mean you have to do this or else you're responsible for World War III. It means you have been brought here in this time to be this change. And if you're listening to these words, you already know that on some level. You already feel called in this passionate way to protect the generations, the 7 generations, to protect the earth, to protect your families, to protect nature. And it seemingly is so out of control, means now is the time to go inward, because nothing you can do externally is going to change that systemically. So you can go work for another political party, a third party, or you could do some action. And we're not saying don't do those things. What we're saying is, if you do this first, if you take care of yourself in this way first, your power shifts. And you begin to, first of all, become aligned to compassion in a way that connects you to a grid of compassion that you may not see anywhere in culture today. It's all of the hearts of the people who have that passion like you do, to do something different, to stand up and be peacekeepers and be that change. And that's a huge network that you can't see. So intellectually, you may not know it's there, but you start to feel it when you start to live this way. And secondly, as Barbara was explaining, when you take care of this inner world, your life becomes better. Your relationships become better. Maybe you stop in relationships that are no longer good for you and you've been saying yes to when your intuition says no, or maybe you've been particularly hard on somebody that you want to find a way to be softer or more compassionate with. You change. You start to see that the us versus them that you engage in doesn't help. And this is particularly true right now politically. If members of both major political parties would come together and say, look, mine does these horrible things, and the other says yes, and ours does this horrible thing, but we do these good things, but we do these good things. And you begin to stop demonizing one or the other, because when you do that, and this is not just in the political arena, but in the personal relationship arena, etc., when you stop demonizing the other person, then you stop denying the conflicts that you have at home. If you look at that politically, clearly, if all of the Democrats who criticized and demonized Trump, not that he didn't do horrible things, said, first, we're going to work at home. What's not going right here? And looked at your own people. And the same is true on a personal level, that if you're involved with a conflict with somebody, if you can step back and look inside, it doesn't excuse their behavior. It just means that your domain is your thoughts, feelings, senses, and decisions of how you're going to address conflict, how you're going to love yourself. That's your job. And that's their job. And you can't do their job for them. And you can't change them to make them be something that you think they should be, unless you're willing to change to be something that you want to be. That whoever you want them to be, you got to go on and make sure that you're being that way. And we want to give you a hint, is that what we're saying is a lifelong way of life. It's not a process you go to and then you're better. It's a humility that allows you to look into the faces of everyone else and know that regardless of how they look in that lens, they are rooted in the same mystery. They come from the same source. They're here to learn the same thing that you are. When you take responsibility in this brave and courageous way for your very own self, you're able to have a much bigger influence when then you do go to be called to start that new political party, or you go to be called to participate in a frontline action. It's not that those things, those actions are wrong or bad. It's what do you bring to it? That power of self-love permeates everything that you do. It will permeate your family, your friends, your organizations, you will have the power to go into those situations and not be subject to the voices of culture and overlook even the worst horrors from usurping your power to be angry and vindictive and act out. And those human conditions, those are the go-to point in this day and age. And that's why we are so incredibly grateful to all of you with human hands and hearts who will come here and consider making this change on this level. It might require that you have to detach from some of the external details that have gotten you all caught up, the things that you're fighting. They'll be there. Trust us, they'll be there. It means a new relationship with self, learning like a pupil, like a student, a new image of who you are. And once you do, and you know where your power lies, it's not always easy. Your intellect is like wild horses, hard to control sometimes. But when it gets a hold of the system, it can destroy you, the intellect. It can keep that anxiety swirling in these stories that are unresolvable. But when you start to align to compassion and let go of that old way and witness yourself as a new person, then you are able to make those changes in your lives. And we're very excited because we think the world is more than ever ready to take a look at self in this way. And we're very grateful for the many, many, many years that we've had in developing, researching, and networking with a group of humans that are living examples. We are going to close the channel and give the airwaves back to Barbara by telling you that there is a great host, the angelic realms and afterlife and the non-physical, however you're going to call that space, where consciousness still lives in its new configuration, right now surrounding the planet. This love and compassion that we are holding, you can feel by tapping into your own depths, considering a new perspective. So we are here when you need us. And really, all you need to do is watch and be amazed. Namaste.